Charlie Ward was likely born about 20 years too late. The Heisman Trophy winning quarterback was a versatile runner and great thrower at Florida State, but at the time in the early 90s, that was not the type of player the NFL was looking for at that position, like they are today. So Charlie turned his attention to the NBA, where he played for more than a decade. Charlie was blessed to have terrific Christian examples at home growing up that, as he explains, helped him stay out of some trouble and issues that he may have succumbed to otherwise. Let's start with early life. If Wikipedia is right, you were not only born in Thomasville, Georgia, but you also did most of your early schooling in Thomasville.
So I'm born and raised in Thomasville, Georgia, and I have both my parents still living. They've been married for 50 plus years, and I have 6 siblings, 4 sisters and 2 brothers, and loving family. And during our time, there's very few opportunities to move here or there. My parents are educators in the system in Thomasville, both the city and the county, and so that's all we do in a sense. And so it was very humble beginnings. Parents worked hard to make sure that we had the things that we needed. Loving environment. Our community was close-knit, small town, but everyone kind of knew everyone in some form of fashion. But, that was the way it rolled. We were committed to our schools, but we also competed together in at the YMCA, AAU programs, and we were good friends if we competed as athletes. So, something that I'm grateful for, that experience, and being able to go on and do things outside of Thomasville was also a great experience.
Where is Thomasville in the state of Georgia?
We're South Georgia. We're on the line of Florida and Georgia, 45 minutes from Tallahassee.
Did you grow up a Georgia Bulldog fan?
I didn't really grow up any college fan. We saw Florida State a lot because that was most of our channels were coming from Tallahassee, and we watched UGA as well growing up. But I wasn't really a fan of either school. We just enjoyed watching sports, but we saw more Florida State programming than any other school.
Okay. Out of the 7 siblings, are you oldest, youngest, middle?
I'm third oldest out of the 7.
I'm just curious because I've got 2 other brothers, and we're not even a year apart because the other 2 are twins. And so we would compete against neighborhood kids 3-on-3 in a lot of things, even football. And I wondered, did the Ward kids from Thomasville do the same thing? Did you guys kind of form your own little pickup team and play against other neighborhood kids in sports?
No, we didn't have that dynamic. We did play neighborhoods against one another.
Okay.
Something we did. So that was always fun, whether it was pickup football games, basketball games. There was always that rivalry.
Any of your brothers or sisters have the same kind of athletic talent that you had?
We all participated in sports at some point, but I was the only one that went to college to play sport.
So what was life growing up in the Ward household like? Were your parents Christians, and were you introduced to Christ at a very early age?
Yes, we were raised as Christians. Our parents took us to church. My grandfather was a minister, and they were raised as Christians as well in the church. So it was a trickle-down effect. And but yes, we were raised in a Christian household.
You went outside and played a lot, And so, is that how you got introduced to playing sports, or did your mom and dad kind of put you in a league at a very young age? How did you get introduced to playing organized sports?
Well, I don't know how I got introduced. It was early for me when it came down to hand-eye coordination at an early age. And my dad was a coach, however, which also helped aid in me enjoying sports as well. And it was something that I always enjoyed doing. Some things come easy to others, and playing sports was being an athlete was definitely something that came easy to me. Dribbling the ball in the house, I always got in trouble for. Balling up socks and throwing it down the hall and running to catch it. It's just everything I turned into something athletic in some form. A lot of broken windows, all those things was a part of my child rearing, but it was something that I just enjoyed doing, and no one really had to tell me to go outside and shoot baskets or go down the street to find someone to play ball with. And so that was just something I enjoyed doing.
Did you have an early love for, one sport or the other?
No, sir. I just enjoyed playing sports, being an athlete. And when I was growing up, we played all of them. And we even made up some games. It was just something I enjoyed doing. So I didn't have one or the other. And that was one of the reasons why I continued to play multiple sports in college if I was going to get the opportunity, because I enjoyed playing those sports.
I'm assuming, as good as you were at especially football and basketball, that you probably started on varsity at a pretty early age.
I didn't start football quarterback, I think, my sophomore, junior year. My sophomore, when a kid got hurt who was in front of me, is the reason why I ended up starting there. But I did did play as a freshman in basketball.
Now, you played baseball too in high school. Was that something that you also played early in your high school career?
I really played baseball, started baseball right before middle school. I played in the Y League. And then once I got to high school, I only played 1 year because my freshman year, the year that I was supposed to play, I got hurt, got injured. And the following spring, I was injured again with the same knee injury. And then my junior year, I decided to run track to help build up my speed for football. And then my senior year, I played baseball. So I didn't play but 1 year of high school baseball.
Were you a sprinter on the track team or middle distance? What'd you do?
I ran like 100, 200, 100. But it was more conditioning and trying to get stronger as a runner.
We're talking with Charlie Ward, former Heisman Trophy winner, the only Heisman Trophy winner to ever play in the NBA, who just turned 50, by the way, last year. And I'm going to ask you about that here in a minute. I want to go back into your high school days. Were you a member of, I don't remember if FCA was a big deal back in the 80s or not, but were you a member of an FCA there, or did you lead any kind of Bible studies? What was your faith walk like when you were in high school?
I committed my life to the Lord like at an early age, and that's when the journey began. Like I said, I grew up in a Christian household, and so I had to make my own decision, of course, to follow Christ. And I wasn't a part of a FCA Bible study, which, we had Bible study at the house. However, it wasn't something that helped. It helped me grow as a Christian, but I didn't have a youth pastor or group that I was associated with, like FCA or Young Life or any of those organizations that I was affiliated with. And I'm sure, if I look back, that definitely stunted my growth as a Christian, not having those outlets and accountability groups. But that was part of my journey. And I'm grateful that God was able to help me through the rough patches, the good times, during my high school years, that I was able to, have my story today to be able to share.
I want to ask you about that in particular because sometimes people they kind of come to a fork in the road in regards to that relationship with Christ. When you look back, was there a time, when you really questioned being a Christian and following Christ because of the pressures that were being maybe put on you by external forces?
I wouldn't say there are times where I question Christ. I'm sure we all question why things are happening. And, I feel like, when I do believe when you have doubts, that's the one person, spirit being that you can go to get your answer. And, a lot of times we're not mature enough to be able to understand what's going on from a spiritual realm. And once we grow, once I was able to grow, as a Christian, dig in the Word, have accountability, be able to help support me in that area, then, a lot of things start to come clearer. And, there are times that we have setbacks, there are times where we doubt, but not to the point where I was going to say I didn't believe in Christ and those types of things. I just knew that it was something that I was going through, and I was grateful to be able to have people in my life to be able to help me navigate through that. And I think that's a part of being in the Christian faith is, aligning yourself with others that are like-minded and to be able to help you go through those challenging times. Because, when we are trying to go through something alone, it definitely hinders or definitely make you doubt whether God is real, whether you can do it. And so it's important that we all, partner or have people in our lives that can help us navigate our way through to see God's hand. Because when we're going through challenging times, sometimes we can't see God's hand, but we only see what we know or where we are at that time. I wouldn't say there was ever a time once I, pronounced my faith and started to live that I doubted God as far as who He was. Just was to a point where I knew I had to continue to grow and develop. I mean, we all have those moments where, like, why me in some form of fashion. However, we have to continue to, seek God's presence in our lives. And I was grateful to be able to have my mom and dad, who were praying and helping me through, challenging times with daily devotionals and prayers and those types of things. So, that played a big part in my belief system.
Let me go back to getting out of high school, having to decide what college to go to. You landed at Florida State. We know that. But what were some of the other choices, and what were you hearing from some of the other schools regarding, playing football or basketball? And, had you decided at that time that you were only going to go to a school that allowed you to do both?
In my recruitment, it really came down to three schools: Georgia Tech, Georgia, and Florida State. And one of my criteria was I was going to play basketball when I got to college because I enjoyed it. And yes, that was one of the factors of me choosing Florida State because Coach Bowden had allowed Brad Johnson to play basketball and football. The other schools said they would allow me to play. However, they didn't have any history on their side when it came down to allowing guys to do that. So I chose Florida State based upon one of the factors was based upon Coach Bowden allowing Brad Johnson to play basketball as well. And Brad he was a quarterback at Florida State at that time.
1993 was a huge year for you. I mean, I look down at the list of awards, and we know about the Heisman, but people may not remember that you were a consensus All-American. You won the Maxwell, Walter Camp, Johnny Unitas, Davey O'Brien, the Sullivan. You were the ACC player. I mean, it went on and on in 1993. And I gotta ask. I've talked with other athletes who, once all the accolades started coming in, and then they kind of started feeling a little bit, puffed up like what they had done, and started to maybe push Christ out a little bit. Did you, suffer that at that time, even though things were going so well? Did you start to think more of you and less of him?
No. I mean, I was to a point where, spiritually, I really didn't, I enjoyed the opportunities. I enjoyed being able to be in the scope of things when it came down to those awards, but that wasn't the reason why I was in it or doing what I was doing. I was grateful for those opportunities and grateful for the opportunity to win those awards because they are prestigious honors. But I was one person of many because without my teammates, I mean, winning awards, that's all great. And my parents instilled in me early about humility and, recognizing that you're one of many and you get the honor is humbling within itself. And you know that you're representing quite a few people, not just yourself, but your teammates, your coaches, your family. And then it was a great opportunity that God was providing, a platform that he was providing to be able to share, Christ with others. And so I think it didn't negatively affect me winning all the awards. I was just grateful that I was able to do it, and it was a platform, and it was also an accountability piece that if I was going to be sharing Christ in front of everyone, that I was going to have to make sure that I was living according to that as well. So, of course, we're not perfect, but I never got to a point where I was bigger than someone else.
So big decision now, leaving college, and you've got the NBA and potentially the NFL in front of you. And you came out and made a hard decision, basically telling general managers in the NFL that if you weren't selected in the first round and that you were not going to play in the NFL because you were a first-round draft pick in the NBA. You were the 26th overall pick in a draft that included Glenn Robinson and Jason Kidd, Grant Hill, Juwan Howard. I mean, a long list of pretty good players who went on to do well in the NBA. But the NFL didn't come calling. Walk us through your thoughts.
Yes. However, I made a choice. That's what I got to talk about all the time. We make choices and we have to live with the results. And so I made a choice that I was going to continue to play basketball in college my senior year, which I was leaving my options open for the NBA because I knew going in that I was projected as a third or fourth round draft pick, and so I wanted to keep my options open. And I made a statement about being drafted. Not drafted. If I'm not drafted in the first round, then I'll be considering my other options. And that was a bold statement, but it was true. And at the time, I had no clue that I would be a first-round pick. So, all the things I was, trusting God that He would put me in the right spot or give me the right opportunity. And I also had to put the time and energy in. And so I was blessed to be able to have one of my coaches who took interest in me from a basketball perspective in helping me develop the skills that he had heard that I needed to develop from the for the GMs and people that he knew in the NBA. And so we went to put the time and energy in to make it happen. And fortunate the NFL made their decision. However, there was you only need one team, and there was one team that I know was pondering an idea, but they weren't 100%. They weren't 100% on board because I wasn't 100% committed, and so they really didn't know if I would, select the NFL if I got drafted in the first round. That was Minnesota and Dennis Green, and Coach Tony Dungy was on that coaching staff as well, and so it wasn't hard. My prayer was, God, close the door, open the door. And when the NFL didn't select me, then that meant that God had closed that door. And so, I was grateful because, when I prayed the prayer about closing the door, I mean, he shut it. If I would have got drafted in the 5th round or 6th round or 7th round, that still would have been an option, and I would have had to, there's something else I would have had to choose from.
Mm-hmm.
He decided to close the door completely, and then that gave me an opportunity to put all my time and energy into, preparing for the NBA draft, and I was able to, make some headway or in the NBA realm by getting opportunities to play in the NABC All-Star Game, going overseas to playing a 4-country tour with Nike, and then going through going through 2 combines along with the individual workouts to be able to get a first round pick. So it wasn't easy, but it was a fun process. I enjoyed it, being able to go through it, and being able to see on the other side the opportunity that was given to me, and I was grateful for it.
Well, 11-year NBA career, 10 of those with the Knicks and partially with San Antonio, and then a year with Houston. As we end this, Charlie, let's get caught up with what you're doing now and tell us about family life and how successful you've been now coaching.
Once I retired from the NBA, I coached 2 years with the Houston Rockets. After I retired playing-wise, Coach Van Gundy. And after that, I got into high school coaching. And so I became a high school football and basketball coach my first year. And then 5 years after that, they asked me to be a head football coach. Booker T. Washington in Pensacola as a football coach. Still didn't have much success there as a football coach, but it was the same type of environment where we were raising young men to help them understand how to handle life's choices and decisions that they make and how they have consequences. Now, fast forward, I've been here at Florida State University School, coaching high school basketball.
So you just turned 50 recently, but you also suffered a stroke. How are you doing these days?
I suffered a stroke like 2.5 years ago, but I'm doing much better. I mean, it was just like anything else, a great eye-opening experience. I was grateful that I was able to come out on the other side of it. But of course, just like anything, just like anything, you have to continue to develop and grow and learn from the experience. And so it was a great assessment. I had to assess what I was doing and how I was going about doing it, and I had to make some changes. And so, I started to work out a little bit more and eat better, and also remove some of the stress around me as far as job and those types of things. So all those things I had to assess when my health declined. Didn't understand it or know it at the time why, but once I started getting tests, looking at my life, it was very eye-opening experience. And I was grateful for my wife being there, because I suffered a mini stroke in Ensenada, Mexico. We were on a mission trip, and then we ended up having to, end the mission trip to head back to the States. It was just definitely God's hand, because I'd gone on that mission trip 2 years before that, and she wasn't on the trip. And so just God had his hand all over this situation. So I was grateful.
Charlie, as we say goodbye, I wanted to ask you, is there anything that you would like to promote? Are you involved in a podcast that people can hear more from Charlie Ward?
Yes, I do a Believe in ACC podcast, which is, I think, on the Noisemaker, that's NOIZ page. I think it's YouTube. And we have a family foundation that we mostly support our daughter in her holiday notes, which right now she's raising money for Javassier Conservatory Orchestra to help young people in the arts, and also I-9 Sports, raising funds to help those families that may not be able to support or pay for an opportunity for the kids to play in I-9 Sports. So she's music. She enjoys music, and she also enjoys sports. And those are two organizations she decided to raise funds for, to be able to support those families that want to be a part of it. So you can find that on my webpage, charlieward.org. More information on how you can support her efforts. And so we're grateful to be able to. God has definitely blessed us to be able to do a lot, and we just want to be able to help and do our part.
Well, Charlie, thank you so much for being a part of this podcast. God bless you, and I hope we get to visit again at some time down the road.
All right, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you. Be sure to like this podcast, and please give us a 5-star rating, and go to suitup611.com for more great interviews